Hello, everyone. This is Christina Osborne from ISO Stakeholder Affairs. I'd like to welcome you to the 2021 Summer Readiness Update call. I will be facilitating the meeting. Here to present the updates are Didi Sabaki, who is the Vice President of System Operations, and Adrian Chiosi, who is Senior Manager of Strategic Initiative Management. Adrian is actually going to provide an update on implementation activities related to FERC 831, Resource Adequacy Enhancements Phase 1, and Summer Readiness Enhancements Initiative. And then Didi will talk about the Flex Alert that went into effect during the heat wave last week. Also joining on the speaker line, we have Anna McKenna, Vice President of Market Policy and Performance, Mark Rockletter, Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer, and Guillermo Bautista Alderete, who is the Director of Market Analysis and Forecasting. So there will be an opportunity after we go through the presentation to ask questions. So you can either ask your question verbally, press #2 to raise your hand, or you're welcome to send your question in the chat directly to me, and I'll read it out loud to the group. The presentation is available on the 2021 Summer Readiness webpage, which is linked on the homepage of the ISO's website. We are also recording this call, and we'll post the video file on at that same location. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Adrian. Adrian, go ahead.
Thank you, Christina, and good morning, everyone. I'm here to present you an update on the projects for Summer Readiness, and Christina already mentioned the 3 projects that I'm going to present. I'm here somewhat on behalf of the project managers that have completed or working towards the implementation of those projects. So this is the implementation aspect of those projects. So the first one I want to mention for Summer Readiness is FERC Order 831, Import Bidding and Market Parameters. I'm sorry, let me step back. This information and news included in this presentation, you have heard or seen, in a similar format in the Release User Group or Market Planning Performance Forum that we had yesterday. So this shouldn't be any news to you, but let's go to the slides and see if, we can present an accurate status of those projects and see if there are any questions. Okay, for FERC 831, Import Bidding and Market Parameters, I summarized the scope of that. There are 2 goals for this project: to modify the tariff and system to accommodate bidding flexibility above the 1,000 per megawatt cap, and apply validations for imported bids. So we complied with the, with the FERC order, and we activated the functionality for compliance of FERC 831 on March 17, but the validation rules and all the enhancements related to that compliance were implemented on June 13. So the project is complete at this point. There are no outstanding issues, and I think we discussed all the details in those release forums. So that's the status of that. A project complete for Summer Readiness. For Resource Adequacy Track 1, we have several phases where, given the the amount of work and complexity of those implementation, as we have decided to stagger the implementation of those projects in various phases, right? So for RA Enhancements Track 1, we have the postal component that was implemented the earliest for this project on June 3rd. Then the next phase of this project aims to implement the minimum state of charge by June 30th. And the current status of this that we're discussing regularly with all the market participants in the market simulation calls Mondays and Thursdays, as well as in the release updates, is that the market simulation, the structured market simulation is complete. All our structure scenarios have passed successfully, but there's still some work in progress with individual parties to test specific, configurable scenarios that they want to be tested before this June 30th deadline. So that's the effort still ongoing for that, but we're on track to complete this implementation by June 30th. And then we have, some OMS enhancements that, given the nature and the amount of work, are coming later in the simulation environment in map stage. Excuse me. And we plan to start the market simulation on June 28th. And then that will take about a week. We feel like we can complete all the testing, simulations, and market simulation for this functionality in about a week, and then continue with the rest until 7/12 when we plan to deploy in production those enhancements. For the summer readiness enhancements, we have a component that was already deployed in production on June 15th, and this is the list of all those enhancements that we have deployed in production. As part of that, initially we had the OASIS report for the gross export and imports by intertie in that, and then we had to move that to the 630 phase, and we are on track to deploy all those items by the end of the month. Again, a similar situation with the RA enhancements. The structured market simulation completed successfully, and we're working with some individual parties, market participants, to complete some additional testing for those enhancements. And then the last component of the summer readiness enhancements is the load export and wheeling scheduling priorities and handling of RA priority on PT export, which had a separate board approval and work planning. And this one, we plan to start the market simulation by 6:30. I think we're wrapping up our internal and end-to-end testing. And our target to implement this additional functionality and enhancements is by middle of July 15. So that's where we are. I added an extra slide here just for your use, just because it summarizes well the ongoing. I deleted the bottom one for the FERC 831 because that one was done, it's completed. But for the activities under summer readiness and resource adequacy, you will see all the release planning milestones and deliverables included in this matrix. In blue are the ones that are already completed, and in black are the ones still outstanding, and you can see it toward the right-hand side, moving to the market simulation and production activation. It's also kind of a repeat of what you heard in the previous slides, but it summarizes all in one slide.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Appreciate it.
Yep.
So, Didi, you're up next.
Good morning. So my name is Didi Subakti, Vice President of System Operations. I would like to just take a little bit of time, 2-3 minutes, 5 minutes maybe, to just provide an update of the first flex alert that we had last week. We did have our first quote-unquote heat wave last week, and I want to just show what we were seeing. And this is actually a public data that's available in the CaliforniaISO.com, just pointing out that June 17 and June 18 we had the first flex alert, but really one of the toughest one is probably the June 17 date. So what you are seeing right there is our demand trend and the net demand trend. There are many factors of why we ended up having a flex alert. I think many of people questions and ask the questions about it was hot, but really, if you look at the demand, we barely get to like 44,000, and we did have a flex alert that is in there. So I did want to point it out that it is June. I think it's historically one of the hottest June. As you know, normally people in California expect the June gloom. So the stack of resources and the stack of outages are the normal common June, while the load itself is not the common normal load in June. So that's basically what, in a nutshell, that's what I normally share with people. It's all about how your resources are stacked against your load. The load is pretty unusual for June, and the stack of resources and the stack of outages is a pretty normal stack of outages and that we have in the June gloom time frame. So through that Flex Alert, we are committed to provide an early and transparent communications. We are utilizing Heatwave Bulletin, Flex Alert, AW Notice. I do want to let people know, just kind of remind folks that we do have that public procedures that we're talking about, the procedures 4420. It's a public procedures that sometimes we just have to, I like to remind people to just refresh on that, on what normally and when that timing comes out when the Heatwave Bulletin or Flex Alert or AWE notice that is out there. In general, we do utilize the day-ahead market results that are normally posted at 1 p.m. to start reviewing all the stuff, all the output of the day-ahead market to make an assessment whether or not we would have a Flex Alert in there. So that's just in general, but it doesn't mean that that's always how we are doing it, because obviously now we are trying to give more advanced notice as we see it coming. Further improvements are coming soon. So for example, I think Adrian has been mentioning about Summer Readiness 2021. There is actually one item in there that's called non-policy item. Many of the item that is non-policy is really just how we could improve our process, in providing that early communication, that early and transparent communication. So that's coming out by July 30th, 2021, so that all the information could be made more and more transparent in there. So I'll stop right there, and I think give it back to Christina. I think there might be a number of questions, and we could have a Q&A for anything, both Adrian's stuff or my stuff.
Yes, thank you, Didi. Yeah, we do have some chat questions, so I'll go ahead and read those off. But if you do want to ask a verbal question, you can raise your hand by pressing pound 2. So first question is from Dave Francis. Actually, these questions are all from Dave Francis so far. Hold on, let me scroll up to it. So the hourly energy price shaping factors posted on OASIS used to calculate the maximum import bid price appear inaccurate based on the language of the 831 BRS and attachment P of the market instruments BPM. When will they be corrected? So we'll start with that question. And Dave is from UTE. Yeah, go ahead, Guillermo.
This is Guillermo. Hi, David. Thank you for raising this concern. Based on the discussion that we have so far, we don't find any misalignment between the calculation and the requirement that we have identified through the documentation. We have seen that you have put in a CD ticket. We will provide more details so that you are able to identify how the calculation is actually done in the application. And we will provide you the reference that you need to be able to match the calculation. At this point, we don't have any identified issue in the calculation.
David, I don't know if you wouldn't mind queuing up. If you have any follow-up questions, press pound 2.
We do have one person in the queue. Caller, your line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Dan Williams from Customized Energy Solutions. But if Dave needs to queue up, he can put me back in line.
Okay, yeah, well, let me just read off. He also asked, can you generally address the customer service notice regarding CAISO curtailing corrected E-tags and the expected market consequences? ODI is telling us it was driven by CAISO action. He said the E-tags during the morning of 6/17. Didi, would you have a response?
Yeah, I'm actually just trying to figure out what is the specific, because I think David mentions that this is specific for e-tax during the morning of 670, and that's probably the morning of the flex alert that we have in there. I'm wondering if that's actually referring to a known defect. But maybe I'm not really certain. We probably have to get that back, Christina.
Okay. Great. And then Dan, go ahead. Is his line still unmuted?
Can you hear me, Christina?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hey, question for Guillermo, just following up on some information that was provided yesterday. So I'm looking at the average incremental RUC commitment above the cleared IFM physical schedules. So it looks like when we're looking at like 615 through 618, that the average incremental RUC above those IFM physical schedules was around 5850 megawatts, and the average incremental RUC target was around 44,500. But based on what we saw yesterday, it looked like the RA must offer energy was only around 42,250. And I'm just curious, since the RUC power balance constraint was hit over those super peak hours on all 4 of those days, did the CAISO take any extra action, like exceptionally dispatching anything, or was the end result just that the incremental RUC target wasn't cleared? I guess kind of what happens when you hit the power balance constraint in RUC as far as any additional physical commitment goes?
Didi,
because it seems as though there's not enough RA resources to hit the RUC commitment that you're looking for.
Hi, I'm Guillermo. Let me just give you a general explanation, because I think we need to find a better forum to discuss these deep dive questions. I think we are not equipped in this morning. There is a briefing and update of the bigger picture to take on this type of very detailed analytical questions. So either we can follow up offline and have this through a CD ticket, or find a better forum, public forum to have this deep dive. As I indicated yesterday, there will be more opportunities to go into these detailed analytical and performance questions. We just need to make sure that we find the proper forum for these deep dive questions.
Okay, I guess I'll follow up by email. Just kind of ran short of time yesterday to review through some of the slides, so I'll follow up by email. Thanks.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else in the queue, Bobby?
We have no more questions in the queue at this time.
Okay, I don't see any other questions in the chat. So this is just here are some resources that are available on summer readiness activities. There's the summer readiness webpage that's linked directly on our ISO website homepage. We also have, I provided the flexalert.org, where you can sign up to receive Flex Alerts and get more information about that program. We have the Heat Wave Bulletin, System Conditions Bulletin, Fact Sheets, and PSPS program available on the news webpage. You can access that by going to the About Us tab and select the news from that drop-down. We also launched a new Energy Matters blog. This actually replaces the newsletter that we used to put out monthly. So it just provides more timely information on issues that affect GRIP and market operations, as well as the electric industry. So if you have any additional questions, please submit those through CITI, or if you don't have access to CITI, you can submit them through Contact Us, which is linked on ISO's webpage. If you are a member of the media and you have questions for that purpose, please contact the ISO media at kaiser.com at that address. Anybody else in the queue?
We do have one person in the queue at this time. Caller, your line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi, it's Justin from Calpine. Guillermo, there was a bit of a disconnect between marginal loss credits and the LMP last summer when these events happened. I'm wondering if you had been able to dig into that and dig into that question a little bit more, and just to understand whether that same disconnect might happen this summer or not.
Hi. I don't recall if Adrian covered that in the previous slide, but we did have an item as part of the summer readiness enhancement to seek for better price signals when we are in these type of conditions. I believe by the time we were dealing with the issues last week, we didn't have yet that piece of the enhancement in place, but that is scheduled to be as part of the summer readiness, and that should help for when we are dealing with these tight conditions and be able to get a better price signal. And that is at least the part that we identified through the analysis that we did for the last summer event.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, do we have anybody else in the queue, Abby?
We have no further questions in the queue.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Greatly appreciate your participation, and enjoy the rest of your day.